All right, everyone, we're meeting today just to continue talking about our field testing. We've been working on the different chunks of the strategy, and we really want to take some time this morning to just look at our next steps, review also what we've been working on, and talk about next steps. Really thinking about what's been working, what hasn't been also, and then thinking about those student characteristics about the on-track students, the emerging students, and the struggling students. Now that we've had a chance to kind of individually look at our data and kind of absorb some of the things we're seeing, let's have a chance to share out what are some of the things we're seeing in our field testing, and kind of go around talking about what we're seeing, and then we will get to talking about where we go from here. Ryan, you want to start?
Yeah, so when I look at it, I looked at a couple of teachers, and what I see from them is that students are starting to make gains in being able to find the word both in the paragraph and in the text. Looking at 7th grade data, they're really getting closer to 73% mastery, and in the 12th grade group that I looked at, they were all on track. The teacher got them to the point where they were all on track, and the thing that I thought was unique about what the 12th grade teacher did was he gave a you-do to just the students that were on track from the last implementation, but then the ones that were emerging or struggling, he gave a we-do. They did a we-do and a little bit more modeling, and then what ended up with his data was that all of the students ended up getting the right answer. And all of the students were able to do the strategy and able to master the skill in his last implementation.
So we're seeing with that teacher, scaffolding and differentiating the strategy is moving the kids along further.
Yeah, and the other teacher was very much a whole class activity and still had students that were emerging and struggling.
Great, thank you. Andrew, you want to talk to us about what you've seen in your last few field testing?
Yeah, so what I've seen, now granted the group that I'm working with this is a little higher level, so 80% are on track. Doing this with my regular level groups, we're at probably 50-60%, 60, maybe closer to 60%. They have or are able to identify the words in the passage. Again, the piece we seem to be struggling with is when we read around the word, and what actually is that? What does that actually look like, and how do we define it?
Okay. Thank you. Keep going.
Yeah, so my class is also 10th grade, but a little bit different group. It's mixed with some kind of your average students. I got a couple high levels, but then I have some lower sped students too, so it's pretty diverse. And so my chunk one, my last chunk one, I had all my students. They were able to underline both the word and in the question and in the passage. So I moved into the chunk two, and I'm kind of seeing the same thing Andrew is, where pulling out some of those key things around the word is a little bit more of a challenge, because I think my model, I was able to do it, but maybe I wasn't referencing some questions properly or kind of showing my thinking as strongly as I could have. And so maybe we're seeing a similar thing happen, where identifying the word is a little bit harder for the meaning, because we're having some trouble pulling out some of that relevant information.
Lisa, you've been working with a handful of ELA teachers.
Yep. So what I'm noticing is that, similar to what you said, the students are moving out of struggling, and most are on track. We have some that are emerging. One thing that in a 6th grade class looks like it was particularly effective for chunk one was a station activity, similar to what you were describing. Based on where students were at, they went to a different station, and then the 2 students who were struggling the most, the teacher was able to do a model and then talk to them individually about the process of chunk one. And that seems to have made a big impact. And in terms of my own field testing, after 3 implementations of chunk one, we've moved on to chunk two. I have about half of the students on track. I'll be planning to implement again. And really it just had to do with the relevance of the clues that they were finding based on the 5 W's.
Okay, great. I've been working with a few social studies teachers, one middle school and one in the high school. With the middle school, seeing very similar things that Lisa described. They're slowly starting to move up. The kids who are in the on track are staying on track, and the kids who are struggling or emerging are slowly moving up. It seems to be repetition is a big piece here. The teacher also had implemented the station activity, and that seemed to let her hone in. For the high school, sound very similar to Andrew, what you said with your upper group. The kids are on track, are moving through it, and sounds like they're ready for this next chunk with the 5 Ws. Just listening to everyone share some things, it sounds like we're moving students through. Students are definitely more on track with chunk 1, with just identifying the word in the question and matching that to the word in the reading. It seems like we're also seeing similar struggles still with chunk 2 about finding the right words and being able to use the W's to kind of help break that down a little bit. So it looks like we still need some more data to really ascertain where we go with chunk 2, or as we move through with it. Let's just talk about, let's get a few of us share, what are your next steps going to be? What are you going to be trying? I know, Nick, you kind of already shared a little bit that you're going to, with what you're going to do with the model. But Ryan, what are some recommendations you have for your teachers?
Yeah, I think with the teachers that are still having students that are struggling, I think the big thing that I've heard around the room is that station activity really helps to focus in on the students that are struggling or emerging, and allow some of that freedom to some of those students that are on track. So I think what I'm going to be suggesting to the people that still have struggling or emerging is that station activity, because we've seen from the data that it has been so powerful. So that's what I'm going to focus on with the emerging and struggling, the teachers that still have emerging and struggling students.
Lisa?
Same thing for teachers who have kids emerging and struggling in chunk 1. Specifically, one of our teachers has moved on to chunk 2, and similar to my own field testing data, some of the kids are not finding the relevant information. And so I think really working on a strong we do, really talking with kids through the questions that they could be asking themselves, so that when they get to the you do, they're more equipped to find those most appropriate clues.
You know, Lisa, I'm just going to build off of that because that's what I was thinking for mine. One of the things that I found helpful for my students is I made a small graph to organize their 5 Ws. But like I was saying, some of the kids, you know, I did my I do. I think the you, I don't know if they're ready for the you do, so I think another good we do, where I can really use some of those 5 Ws as what does this question sound like in science when we're approaching science text. And I think that will be helpful and hopefully push them to maybe let them go into that you do a little bit more clearly. But I think that's where I need to go as well, is really modeling with them again what sort of self-questions they should be doing to help them identify keywords and phrases in the text.
With your
Yeah, so I think you and I talked about this, modeling the 5 Ws, and then having the students not only do that as well, but also like regurgitate back or explain on paper in written form what I did during that model. I tried that, and I don't know if they quite understood the process of that. So we're still working on it. But that really, like that comprehension piece of these are the 5 Ws, what did I then do? That's kind of where I'm going.
Have you thought about like a shoulder share, the same idea, instead of writing it down, like having somebody in the group summarize orally?
I think the problem is the times that I've done it, I think it's been so different because I've never done it before.
Sure.
So if there was a script of demonstrating and of modeling the 5 Ws, I think it'd be a lot easier.
Okay.
I think in our next LT, we can definitely go over that script with the model and kind of hear what we're seeing today. It sounds like the we do is going to be a really important piece, really focusing on what's relevant versus not relevant. And I think keep trying out the different ways to let the students interact, whether it's the graph like you have, whether it's the visuals up on the board, and like you said, Andrew, that metacognitive question still obviously has a big play, so we'll keep working on those things. Any last thing before we wrap up?
No, I was just going to suggest that graph. I did take it away for one of my field testing samples and it didn't go very well. So I'm thinking about middle school or some of those teachers who are having a lot of emerging or struggling students, and
Mhm.
maybe a suggestion for them to help kind of boost them.
Okay.
So,
Great.
Good. All right, thanks, guys.